I would like to see and invite you all to see what Vikram has to present today about the development they are doing from Hypermind. And I will present Vikram, of course. Vikram Anand is Hypermind co-founder, and before that, he was almost 4 years working as full stack developer. He defined himself as an opportunistic and smart worker with experience in the design and development of website and web applications, with the aim of making technology that works for people. Hypermind is a technology and research organization dedicated to building trust and transparency in the real world. And he's going to present us Hypersign, a cryptography-based single sign-on solution that enables users to securely access applications, web apps, and as well as the apps or dApps without providing their access credentials, usernames, password, and other information. So let's go with Vikram presentation. Don't forget, once again, to send your question through YouTube chat and your chain names associated. Vikram, welcome to be here. Thanks to being with us. And stage is yours. We are going to be playing the presentation.
Okay, so let's understand how Hypersign works and the detailed architecture of it. So on high level, user goes to a web page where he sees a login button, login with Hypersign. He scans the QR code and then he signs the message which was there in the QR code, and the digital signature goes to the Hypersign auth server, which actually talks to a smart contract sitting on blockchain, where it checks for the verification of the digital signature and user gets authenticated. So that's the very high level. I can show you a quick demo for it. So this is a website, and as you can see, it has a login button, login with Hypersign. So I will click on it, and I have the mobile phone in with me. You cannot see that, of course, but I will use the mobile phone to scan. Yep. So the user is authenticated, and as you can see, this is my email address and this is my public key. You got it, right? I love it. So I mean, that's on very high level. Now let's look at the layered architecture a bit to understand a bit more in detail. So in the bottom, what we have is a blockchain and decentralized storage. Now blockchain holds the smart contract, of course, for validating the digital signature, for managing the DIDs, digital identifiers, and all that. And we have decentralized storage, which is kind of optional. I mean, okay, but before I go in any of these, I would like to say you that, again, this is a disclaimer, which I always do to save myself. Uh, so a lot of things which I'm going to tell you now is still in the process where we are evaluating, where we are thinking like how we can fit this solution in the scope of single self-sovereign identity, and we are getting through the concept of self-sovereign identity. So it's not very concrete idea, but yeah, I'll like I will let you decide. Anyways, so you have a decentralized storage where optionally user can store his user information, of course, in encrypted form, which nobody can take because the information gets encrypted on the phone and then it gets stored. It's just kind of a storage that we are giving. Now on top you have a authentication layer, or rather it's an authentication server layer, where you have a license manager and you have authentication server which manages the infrastructure for all of the things which like very like processing, managing the infrastructure for companies to be able to register themselves, manage license and users and all that, right? And then you have app servers which will integrate the Hypersign with them. And on top you have authenticator application, which is nothing but a mobile apps, which I don't know, I can show you. Okay, I cannot show you. Anyways, so high level, this is it. We'll go to the next diagram. which tells you about the contract. Basically, the Hypersign is built or to be built with these three contracts in mind. Like uh, you have identity manager contracts, you have license manager contract, and we have Hypersign token manager contracts. So identity manager contracts is the core of everything, which has the responsibility of managing the digital identifier registries and all that. And it also has the stateless method which verifies the digital signature. Then you have a license manager contract (LMC), which is required for the company to be able to enroll with Hypersign. Now, this license manager contract can be like thought of as a state channel, wherein the companies can decide to pay for the Hypersign services as per number of API call that he is trying to make, or as per number of times that this stateless function is getting called, or number of times the user authenticates. So, I mean, again, this is again in thought process. So that's the license manager contract, and then you have a Hypersign token manager contract, which actually takes care of the economy of within the ecosystem. Talking of the economy, the Hypersign the economy is very simple, as in a service provider or a company. Whenever, so there is a concept of endorsement score in Hypersign, which actually gives companies a kind of trust on the data which is user is sharing. So that trust is actually being maintained using Hypersign endorsement score on the blockchain. It's a kind of rating that user attribute will have. Like I said, we do not store any user information, right? So user can share anything or everything with the company. But then company has to have some ability to be able to trust on. Of course, they can verify it, but then before, so to be able to get more trust on the attributes which user is sharing, they can look for this identity score, sorry, endorsement score. So Hypersign with the economy says that a company can earn token by endorsing a particular identity attribute, and they can spend token for availing the services which Hypersign provide, which is nothing but authentications. So that's pretty much it. Now I will talk about in some more detailed flow of user, which is called nothing but a user create profile. This is nothing but how a user gets onboarded on the Hypersign first. So user opens the mobile app, which we are calling it as a authenticator application, and he enters its details and saves it, right, and press the save button. So basically what happens in the save button is we create a profile, private key and public key, and the private key gets stored in the mobile device, and also it encrypts the user's data and stores in the mobile phone itself. And the encrypted text along with the profile public key uh, goes to the Hypersign server for creating the profile, where we store the encrypted data into the storage, decentralized storage, and then we hash the data and gives us endorsement score of 0 for the first time. Also, we create the DID, digital identifiers, and all this information are kept on the blockchain. And then user is able to see his endorsement score as 0 when he creates the profile and on the profile page. And that's how the create profile flow is works. Next is, now user have created a profile. What he can do is he can go to a website to register himself. Now, one thing to notice over here is the registration and login flow is kind of I have kept the two different diagrams, but they will kind of work together, as in the company will know that okay, this user is not exist with me, so it will redirect to the registration flow. Otherwise, it will redirect to the login flow. So that kind of concept to make life more simpler, and so that user should not do registration and logging in two different steps. So yeah, so user goes to the web page. So this is the application, and user uh, creates a application. Sorry, opens the application in the browser. What happens? when the moment you press the login button or login as Hypersign is, challenge request goes to the authentication server, and the challenge comes, and a QR gets generated with the challenge and the application ID. The QR gets generated using an SDK, and which user is able to scan. So if user is the first time of this application, a new authentication keys gets generated. This is again a new set of key pair. So every application will have a different key pairs, which is different than the profile key pair. This ensures that user should not be able to track on the anywhere, like because if if people know that he's using this application, which is, then it's not, it's kind of hiding or revealing his identity, which is being taken care with using different key pairs for different applications. Anyways, so one more thing to notice here is that in the registration flow, what happens that the application sends the app ID challenge, and it also sends something called user data access policy. Now, what this user data access policy is uh, different application needs different kind of information from user. For example, airline service might not need information of his address, or like its home address, or maybe his educational details. He does not need that, right? It only needs email address and phone number. That should be sufficient for him. So there is a concept of minimalizations in identity, right? If you read about the Cameron's 7 laws of identity, it talks about the minimalization. And also, if you read about the self-sovereign identities 10 principles, which is given by the Christopher Allen, he also talks about the minimalization. So this is very important. You, as a service provider, you only take those information which is the minimal information which is required for you, for a user in your application to be work. So which is why we have came up with this concept of user data access policy, where he defines like what all information is he is going to ask from the user. Anyways, so then user, what user will do is user will press the allow access button, and when he press the allow access button, remember in the create profile he already saved some of the information. So he will be given a checkbox kind of page where he can check box, okay, say okay, here all of this information I am allowing access to. And a digital signature gets generated using the auth public new auth key, which was generated for this particular application. Along with that, another digital signature gets generated with the profile public key, or profile private key rather. And those information goes to the application server. Application server first stores the user data, because the user data never comes to us. So, and then it mm, forwards the request of user verification to our auth server, wherein he sends the profile public key digital signature, actually both the digital signature, to the auth server, and auth server validates this digital signature. So basically, first it checks whether the user exists or not using the profile public key. Profile public key is nothing but the DID, remember. So it checks, it validates that, and then sends the response to the true or false, as in to the application. Now the application server understands that okay, this user is the right user, but he does not still have not validated the user's attribute which user has shared. So that is being taken care by the application server. We do not worry about that. So all of the things like whether his email is validate or not, whether his address is correct or not, that is a responsibility of the application server. They do it anyway, so that's their responsibility. So that's the concept of how registration works. Now okay, I'll go to the login, right? So almost same thing. You go to the QR page, press a button, and then the challenge gets generated. And this time, user UDAP policy need not to go to the authenticator, because the registration has already been done. So it only sends the app ID and the challenge, which gets signed by the auth private key, and the digital signature along with the both of the digital signature gets comes to the Hypersign auth server to be able to validate on the blockchain, and then if the digital signature is valid, the user gets authenticated and goes into the application number redirects the user to the home page. Yeah, so that is pretty much it. I know there are a lot of confusion. Even I am confused in many of these places. So I am ready to discuss all of these, like how we can improve this system and all that. But this is the high level that I can come up with. Uh,
Awesome. Thank you, Vikram, for that presentation. If you like, please come up to the stage with me to see about some questions we have.
I think Vishwas can join in because Vishwas is the one who was presenting. So
Okay,
yeah,
don't worry.
he's the brain
Vishwas?
behind all our products. So I'm
yeah,
just
hi.
Okay, great. Welcome, Vishwas.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I have a couple of general questions on. I always like to ask how is to work with Eternity, how is to work with the tools we have. How's the overall experience on that?
yeah. So the core infrastructure that we talked, right, like all the smart contracts, definitely they are going to be built on the Eternity blockchain. Apart from that, you remember I talked about the license manager smart contract,
Yeah.
which could be actually kept in the form of state channels, and where the companies will be able to pay based on API uses. Remember in the last session, I have actually taken the session of paper API call demo. So, I mean, I'm trying to gather all of these information and trying to see whether I can, what all other texts that I can make use of. Like I'm exploring the concepts of Oracle as well in this case.
Yeah, well, that was actually my following question about state channels and oracles. Could we explain in a few words? I know you already did a little bit, but to have a little more detail about the use of state channels and
Yes.
how's the status of that?
Right now, everything is in concept stage. We have not yet built anything with respect to the state channel. I mean, the POC that we are showing it to everyone, it's not decentralized, but yeah. So because we are still exploring the space, right, and I think it will take some time for us to understand the whole tech properly. Now, coming to the question of state channel, like I said, the one use which I can clearly see from here is the use where, and that is what where this thing, the usage, the maximum usage of the application is going to be the management of like licenses, like number of API, how many number of APIs that a company's user is calling to us, keeping that record and deducting money based on that. So that is one use case that I can see in this application for state channel. I am still struggling, or rather, like not really struggling. I haven't actually explored the space of Oracle, to be honest. So I don't have the, like, I cannot answer the, like, where I can make use of the Oracle for now. Maybe you guys can give me some suggestion.
Okay. Well, you know how it is. There is a lot of green space on everything we are speaking, especially on what is about the proof of identity, the way we can use it for mainstream, right? So
Right.
it's usual to have a phase where you are understanding the concept, understanding the technology, how it's going to impact to everybody else, because this need to be very easy for people and regular people without any technical knowledge to use. So
Correct.
it's normal to work through all that process. Let me check also about oracles. We have a very good starting point because of Superhero. At Superhero we are using oracles a lot. So you can have a pick there. Let me see what we have. What else? Another question we have. Who is most likely to use Hypersign? Where do you think will it find the most interest?
The vision that we have for Hypersign is to be able to actually become a SSI kind of thing. So in that space, it will be for general user, but we cannot achieve the vision without taking small steps. So the small steps which we are going to actually take like in our next 3-4 months is my user would be mostly employees of companies. So I mean that space, enterprise space that we are looking into, because that's where I am feeling that we will get business. The public space, I mean I'm still very not clear that why a normal user will pay for anything. Like the moment you add this in payment to a general user, you kind of lose. I mean, it's very hard for to to get into that B2C space, right? So we are not going into that for now.
Just adding on to what Vishwas said, so right now we are focused on enterprise just because we feel that this can fit into their overall single sign-on infrastructure. So if you see an enterprise right now, scenario is that you are an employee, you want to log into like their system where at least you will have to use Office 360, Slack, Salesforce if CRM is there, Salesforce or SAP. So to aggregate all this, either they will have an SSO where you just need to log in with user ID, password, and then you will be able to access all this application, or there is no SSO. So you literally have to log into everyone separately, right? So this is the current scenario. So what benefit we are giving to enterprise is that there is for authentication, they are using two-factor. What is that? The first factor is you need to add password, user ID and password. The second factor is the second TOTP that comes in your mobile app. And that TOTP is actually the basically the public key infrastructure. That is to increase the security, because you see passwords are getting hacked and whatnot. So what we are saying to them, look, we can give you even better seamless authentication, because you don't need to have a two-factor to have a stronger authentication, right? Better security, I mean. So you can rely completely on public key infrastructure, and with the help of a stateless digital signature verification system, we are providing them passwordless authentication on top of their SSO. What benefit we are adding is that using blockchain technology, we have found out a way where for employees, for enterprises, integration is very important, right? So which blockchain, companies tend not to go, not to focus on that, because that is where honestly we will be able to help them. So in order for an enterprise to accept this, we had to figure out what all type of SSOs they are using. So some of them I can list to you guys, which I'm sure you might have known. It's something is called Active Directory by Microsoft. Second one is an open source IBM product called Keycloak. So our last couple of months, 6-month research was like how we can give a blockchain authentication, stateless authentication solution on top of this. So now with the help of an authenticator module, we are able to integrate with all these enterprises. So now I will try to connect this to how we will be moving towards a B2C market, right? So our idea is that first get enterprises as partners, and once we have a lot of number of enterprises and they have started using this our authenticator app, so inherently this authenticator app is made in terms of self-sovereign identity, where the user have the actual control of their identity, right? So once we have a lot of partners, automatically user will be able to use his identity in all these partners that are our partners now. So slowly we have that whole network effect, and then that's when we are planning to release a token to have a whole network system which can help in for identity. What benefit enterprise will get here is that with the help of our endorsement score, which is basically an aggregation of all the identity and a user holds. For example, you will have your passport or similar to that, some identities in your country, depending on what country we are in. So we provide a score for each of these, like a digital signature score. And then if you are your partner company has already verified a user and you are also on the same network, so you can let go of the whole lengthy KYC processes. So this is the in future we would like to see our application going that way, but right now it's mostly passwordless authentication for enterprise. I hope I am able to give a basic idea about the product.
Oh yeah, yes, understood for sure. And you have a great path to work yet, but still we have to start somewhere, right? Awesome. Well, let me check. I have one other question here from before, but I think it's for the next subject, so I will skip it. About security and traceability system. So I think it's more for the next panel. I have another one here. Will it be difficult to onboard traditional enterprises to use a blockchain identity solution?
Actually, Eric, thanks. A very nice question. And so you remember that my other video that I shared with you, which was how to install this whole infrastructure, which we later on we removed that and we shared with you a different, because we wanted to show how we are trying to use aeternity blockchain in our application. But the actual video was about how you can install passwordless authentication with using Hypersign open source code, right? So it takes only 12 minutes exactly for me to literally read the read from our GitHub repo and implement it in the key clock single sign-on infrastructure. Key clock is basically one of the most open source single sign-on provider by IBM, and most of the enterprises are already using that. So you can almost take our it's like you git pull and then a Docker container up, and then create your app there, and then you can have multiple apps, as many apps you want, and all these apps will have an SDK, and automatically the whole SSO will start working. Similarly, there is something called federation, which is very important for enterprises. So federation is where your employee can access application of other enterprises, like your partner enterprises. And that's where I was talking about, like Slack and Office 360. These all need to be federated, and it's called SAML federation. So that part is actually kind of secure because that doesn't use password. It uses something called SAML protocol, which is already passwordless. So what we inherently give them is like the actual authentication, which was based on password. We remove that and give a passwordless. And then with using SAML, we can do the federation part. But we are definitely looking into how we can even add one more layer of security to SAML if possible, or remove SAML completely, because that's a very lengthy process to integrate. So for starters, we will give like already included SAML plugins for different applications such as Slack, Office 360, and Active Directory, all these things, so that whomever we are trying to sell it, they by just doing Docker container up, they will have all these features out of the box.
Nice. I think the question is, I mean, you explained about how to integrate and all those stuff, but the question is, it is really a very good question. The question is about, do you think that it will be, or how difficult or easy it would be for an enterprise to actually onboard blockchain? So if you look at this, right, how he talked about SSO and all that, right? Hypersign, if you think in this way, the Hypersign at a core, it's nothing but a stateless function which does your digital signature verification. That's it. End of the day discussion. This is the core of Hypersign, and rest of the thing is just layers. But so now, if you look at key clock will be on the enterprise scenario, and whenever a user wants to authenticate just for the digital signature verification, it will make call to us and Hypersign. And Hypersign is nothing but a smart contract which is deployed on a stateless smart contract function, which is stateless. So it will make calls to that stateless function just to verify the digital signature. So the truth or because the trust issues over there, right? So what is the trust issue that we are solving with the blockchain is whenever a digital signature which gets verified somewhere on some server, central server, how would you trust on that server that it is always telling you the right signature result? So that trust, that's a trust issue. So that what we have done is we have just taken out that trust issue and put it on the blockchain so that it can become a trustless. So this is where we are trying to integrate the blockchain and with the enterprise and telling them that, hey, see, this is where you need blockchain because this is a trust problem. Otherwise, you have to trust on a Hypersign company or Hypermind company, which you might not want to. So, I mean, so that is what we are trying to do.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. All the work we are doing is available on GitHub, right? People can access it and see it. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Until we have enough money to keep it open. So for now, we have 3 stages. The first stage is the developer and student version, which is active. But once we have those connectors, SAML connectors, then we will go. I mean, those code will not be public. For that, the enterprise need to pay. But whatever we have right now, for example, any developer who wants to just secure their application, all code will be open source. Just the enterprise part of integrating with Office 360 and Slack, these things might not be public.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you for the clarification. Well, I think we are okay. So I will thank you for being here, both Vikram and Vishwas. Thank you very much for your presentation and for responding all the questions. I invite you to stay here with us so we can move on to the next track. I will also to thank everybody that's in YouTube, seeing us, sending questions, supporting us. Thanks once again, and let's welcome Mary and Alex, who have great things to tell about exciting projects. So let's go to the main track. Thank you, guys.
Always excited to watch them speak. They always come up with very awesome topics.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Mary, Alex, stage is yours.